Hey, sister, sitting store, what I'm about to preach on. Damn, sister, close the door. Watch what you step out on. I said, hey, sister, so before you become a sin, I said, hey, sister, there is more, even if you think there isn't. When you live your life day to day, there will always be obstacles in your way. But don't let that get you down, girl.
Do you love that song?
I love that. Has got to be the best intro song that I've ever had the pleasure of following up. Wow. Thank you.
I'm telling you. Every time, I mean, that song for me, it never gets old. I'm just jamming out and rocking out to it like it's the first time I'm hearing it every single time. Shouts out to our friend, Sophia. Yes.
Yes, you introduced us to, and yes, she's just beautiful human being. I love her.
Yes. I mean, isn't that awesome? Like when our visionary women start connecting other visionary women, and then all of a sudden the circle is bigger, it's stronger. It's, yeah.
Exactly. Bigger, stronger. We know we're not alone. We hear other voices, diverse voices. And I just love that about what you're doing. The 30 days, 30 different perspectives, similar questions is just beautiful. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. And thank you for saying yes, because I am conscious of the fact that this is a part of everybody's journey, the ability to come to the table and say, okay, I'll try, I can do it, varying levels of confidence, but all coming to the table. So thank you for your yes. Now, I just want to let you know that if whatever you're doing right now doesn't work out for you, you should totally go into comedy because you are hilarious.
Oh my God, you're so funny.
You have me behind here cracking up.
It's funny. My partner, my husband says the same thing. Sometimes like, you should just try it out. And I'm like, I'm not a funny person, but I think it's because I really think I'm not funny that it cracks people up. My secret is I've got 3 comedians at home that are still a little bit shorter than I am. About that. So I love this. These days when I meet people, I look like anyone else's size, right? But in real life, if someone meets me sitting down and then I stand up afterwards, they're like, I had no idea you were so tiny because I'm not even 5 feet tall. So, so my 10-year-old is about this much shorter than I am.
You got maybe like 3 more months to go before your 10-year-old is like, okay, mom,
3 weeks maybe. Yeah, we're watching it closely. But yeah, I got 3 natural comedians at home, so they keep me young. They keep me from taking myself too seriously. I think that's important.
That is important, isn't it? I mean, the little ones, their perspective on life is so refreshing sometimes. The things that we might just, like you said, take too seriously or just not be able to relax about, they look at it so differently.
And like so wise, like you tell me if I made that story about your daughter who told you, oh, mom, you sound a little bit tired. And my children too will be like, if you're tired, then can't you just rest? And I think, oh, you are so right.
Right? Like they're like, isn't there a really simple solution to this?
Exactly. Simplicity. They have this clear simplicity about them.
Yes. And not to be fooled, the simplicity is intricate at the same time. You know what I mean? Like it's their ability to process through the problem in a way that doesn't overly complicate the problem. And a lot of the work that I do with nonprofit leaders is helping them to take their complicated structure and simplify it, and children have that natural ability to just keep it simple.
Exactly. Their way to envision something, right? The nuances, we'll get there when we go through it. I often think of it as like when you talk about vision, right? I think, okay, if I knew clearly every single path or step I was going to take, it's like writing a book. The book would be done already. I'm sorry, the book is not written. but I kind of know the main story. I know the main characters. I think I know where I want it to go. I have my compass in mind.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? That's one of the beautiful things about the work that you're doing. You know, you're helping people to stay connected with the now. You know, it's the vision forward is important, but there's so many now steps getting there. So before I get too ahead of myself and of yourself, please tell us about you, what you do, how you help people, and your business and everything.
Thank you, Nadia. Really, again, appreciate just the opportunity to speak with you, to get to know you, and like you said, to share the story. I loved one of the questions you had given me to prepare myself was, how do you feel about writing your own version of the story? And so when people ask me, tell me about yourself, it always depends on with whom I'm speaking. So I'm like, if you will forgive me, I'm going to just speak as if I don't have anyone in particular in mind, except for myself. I find the times when I'm really hard up on explaining myself, I say, Crystal, just talk to yourself. Then you don't have you can assume you don't have to assume lack of knowledge or just tell it what it is. And I feel then the nuances bubble to the top. The things that really matter. So ever since I was really young, since we're talking about kids, when I was a little kid, I was like, I don't know where this came from. I was like, anyone can do anything as long as they really believe in it and really want that. So I grew up feeling that way. And I was really, I went through kind of many different lives. I grew up in a family restaurant, so hospitality, entertainment is really important to me. Hey, Nick. Nick's someone that's on my journey now with me. And then I went to music. Music was my first love. So I spent the first half of my love with music. After that, I dropped out of school. My parents are horrified. My family is horrified. It took me a couple of years. And then I said, you know what? I want to build a holodeck one day. My little 1-year-old self. And I said, okay, I'm going to go into engineering, so I kind of went all around. I got my MBA at the University of Toronto. In between, I got to work at the Canadian Space Agency for a few short months. That was fun. I know you're a little bit into languages, and I got to pick up my French there. So my point of this is, I've got a varied background, like I think a lot of us do, following your passion. And my point is, remember at the beginning of the story, I said, when I was young, I thought anyone can do anything as long as they really, really want to. My problem was I didn't know what is it that I want to do. I'm passionate about anything. You tell me you're excited about something, I'm like, tell me everything. I want to know everything. Right? So then I ended up, I'm like, I am an adult now, even though I'm 42. And
you're what?
I know. I can still kind of pass. So I'm holding on for a couple years. Yeah, I'm 42. I can say it proudly. And I thought, I am now that adult that I never meant to be. This person that doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, who isn't feeling quite fulfilled, who is struggling to make time for her kids. That's the way I grew up, with my parents way too busy. I'm like, this is not the life. What on earth happened, Crystal?
Yes.
And I said, at least now if I want to help people, it's authentic because I've been through it. Right?
Yes.
It's not from some naive perspective of where everything just works out beautifully. Yeah. So I really had it took a little bit of time. So what are my gifts? Right? Let's be shy about it or not. Let's be bold about it. What are the gifts that I have to share with the world? Right? How do I see the world? What do people seem to resonate with? It was kind of you to say I'm a comedian. Like, I guess I love inspiring people with words, making people feel good. Music was a big part of that, hospitality. And my kids. So then I created this company that I've since called Leo Han, stands for Living in Our Here and Now, because I really wanted to be present with my family and see all the beauty that's in the world. Remember I told you I'm passionate about anything and everything, from the science behind flowers to the music that's in nature, right? The physics behind martial arts, like all of it just blows my mind, right? All the physical senses that you get from eating. Eating is the most culinary art, so beautiful. How can I create something? I said, how can I create time where I'm learning and growing as an adult, and I'm also spending quality time with my family? And so that's what we do with Leo Han. We create entertainment. It's entertainment. You do learn. You do create. You bond. And I want to make it clear, for me, family. The definition of family is anyone who loves each other. So I happen to have 3 young children. So right now I'm starting with families and parents who have young kids, but eventually I want to spread it to anyone who's interested in seeing this world through new wonder, childlike women.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that idea of being able to just be excited about the mundane. You know what I mean? It's you could walk by the flower or you could actually stop and take a look at it, you know? My daughter and I, we saw a caterpillar on our walk this week, and it was like the first caterpillar of spring. This excited moment, you know? It is so true. Sometimes we do need to be able to tap into that that presence, that right now, and just, you know, go with it, just enjoy it. Thank you for that, for creating that opportunity for families. And I agree with you, anyone who loves one another. Thank you for creating that space, because now we are realizing how difficult it is to spend time together as a family when, you know, you extended family, you know, people are planning drive-by birthday parties and things like that, and it's completely changed the way how we have been forced to interact with our community. So the opportunities that every opportunity that we have to come together is a good thing, you know, it's a very good thing. Now, you started talking about some stuff, and I just want to say I love that you put some of the questions up on your Instagram, and I like the engagement there and seeing people are like, I actually don't know what I would say if I had to answer that question.
It was part engagement and part cheating. I wanted some ideas, you know. I was like, what do people think? How? Because even I run this every Friday morning at 6:30. I run something called Philosophy Tea. It's philosophy, and the tea is optional. Actually, Nick, who just joined us, he's part of that team and or crew, whatever group. We just get together, and what I love is we're just always asking each other questions. And if we're discussing a concept, one of the first questions is, what do you mean by that? You know, what does that word even mean? So understanding how people saw the word victory, I was like,
Yes.
oh.
Yeah. You know what? I think back to your point on the diversity of thought that is in this ongoing conversation that we've been having throughout the month, to me is so important to get different viewpoints. And I think that if we remain intentional about including different points of view, then all the other layers of diversity that we like to check off in our organizations and what we're doing, then those things fall in. Because we can't have genuine diversity of thought when everybody looks alike, sounds alike. You know, it can't happen.
So true, right? We think so, and then you go, wow, there's got to be a different way.
Exactly.
That's what I love about bringing in. It's not just who we are in our own personal history and the culture. It's also what we get jazzed about, you know?
Exactly.
That's why I love, you know, about Leohan. We bring together these different topics. And then seeing how what kills me is when people say, and it still seems like it's kind of cool and okay to say, math is hard and I don't like math. And that just breaks my heart. I'm like,
breaks my heart too.
I'm like, you don't know. There's math in music. In sports, there's so much math. Maybe the way it's been presented, yeah. Traditional schooling, yeah, man, I wouldn't like it either that way. It's just and to hear it from someone else, someone from another perspective and bringing that beauty. I think that's where we're getting better, right? Is learning how to speak to each other, finding that common ground. And if we're not in a room, like you say, with diverse voices, how are we ever going to find that common ground?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I feel like if we could talk all day about everything, but we're going to let the people know what they want to know too.
Yes.
All right. So my dear, we've been having this conversation with everyone, and the responses have been amazing. And I'm so excited to hear yours today.
Oh my.
No pressure or nothing, you know, just, yeah. Vision. What, in your opinion, is the importance of vision?
Yeah, it's such a great question. You know, I kind of thought of vision before you asked this question. Maybe I've been thinking about lately, like goals, you know, or things that you want to achieve or things that you want to manifest. May I use a really silly little example? And I'm sorry, this is going to sound really girly to some people, and I'm not a girly girl, so I'm going to allow myself this freedom. I give myself this permission, because I was just sharing this example. So, you know, visions can be very complex. Like what I'm trying to build with my business, people might think they understand in 30 seconds, and I appreciate the love and the encouragement, enthusiasm, but obviously I'm building something that I think is going to take me 25, 30 years of my life. I cannot boil it down to you in 25, 30 seconds, right? And so for me to be able to articulate and to visualize, to understand with granular detail, all the little nuances that I see, but to the point where it's like a human being, right? So then what I mean by this girly explanation is like, okay, when does this happen? So I don't know about you, but when I want to go buy something like a dress, there is no way I'm going to find this dress until I know exactly what the dress looks like in my mind. And this has happened several times. I'm like, I'll never forget. I was like, I want this dress. It kind of looks like denim. It's classic, but it's got a bit of funk. You know, it's like no caps, blah, 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 blah. And then I walk into a store and bam, there it was. I was like, thank you. But until I know exactly what that dress looks like, forget it. I'm just wasting time. Yeah. And then I thought to myself, you know, giving your permission, like you said, diverse thoughts. Like, why is it okay to say that? Why can that analogy be taken seriously? Well, that particular dress is very specific. It has so many different characteristics to it. It's not like some random thing. To me, just like a business plan or anything else, all these different details. So until I could be very clear, and that's a weird thing that happens in life, to me anyway, I've heard a lot of people say that. I've got a very strong science background, and yet when things like that happen, I'm like, okay, I'll just go, you know, and I'll keep on doing that. I'll say, okay, this is what I really want. And so for me, vision is really important to know where you're going. And then my kids, they teach me this too, is then you test, right? Because until you know clearly what you want to test, how do you test anything at all? Right? If I don't know what my message is, if I don't put it into words and speak them, and hear how you receive them, how am I going to know? And that was a big deal for me. I imagine a lot of people, right? We're very shy or very scared to put ourselves out there. Because remember earlier I used that word gift, and that was very hard for me to use, honestly. Because we get shy with our gifts.
Yes.
We get shy with who we truly are, because we're afraid of rejection. I'm creating Leohan with all the love in my heart that I can possibly, and when I give it out there and you get rejected, you feel, oh my goodness, right? It's very hard. So I'm learning. It's okay, right? Maybe that just means the vision wasn't clear enough for that person at the time.
Yeah, you know, that is a very interesting point I want to pull out. The idea that one, the clarity of the vision is on our side. That part is our responsibility. But the acceptance of the vision on the other person's part, we have no control over that, you know? And that part is completely, well, do our visions align? And that fear of rejection that we all struggle with comes when we don't create this space that says, oh, you're actually allowed to say yes or no to my vision, because what's important is that our visions are going in the same direction, you know, and creating that space for other people to say no is what gives us the space to then be able to say thank you and move on, you know. And that's a very scary thing, because like you said, we're creating with everything we have. You know, we're not creating, you know, like with robotic arms that are separate from us, right? It's everything. We're pouring ourselves into it. And, you know, so we want it to just all be soaked up by every single person who comes around, you know, that everybody will just get it right away. But no, it doesn't work that way, just because they're different and what they need may not be what we have right now. And that's a really hard thing. Sumaya, who was on earlier, she gave me this tip one time. We were just chit-chatting. She was like, after you pour your love into making your offer, pretend that it's a refrigerator. Wow. Like when you offer it to someone, just pretend it's a refrigerator. It's not you anymore.
Right.
Now it's outside of you. Yeah. Now it's separate from you. So their rejection of the thing is not the rejection of the you. And I was like, it just blew my mind away, right? Yeah. And that is something that a lot of us as visionary women, the fear behind not clarifying the vision, you know, the fear behind not pursuing the vision stems from that fear of, will other people get it? You know, that is a major thing that we all are facing as visionary women. And so we can give ourselves that gift that says they don't have to get it. They're allowed to not get it. Because
Yes.
what I really want are the people who get it. You know?
And then you can, because they're the people who will be able to appreciate the vision when it's not fully fleshed out yet.
Yes.
Right? Like I said, I think it's going to take me the rest of my life, to really do what I really want to do. And not many people can jump into my mind. I don't think I can't even from day to day, right? And so they're the people who are kind enough, generous enough to believe in your vision, to want to follow along the journey and are maybe, like you say, similar paths themselves. And together, as we add more voices, right, work together, then others can be like, oh, remember we talked about those points of connection. Then there might be a slightly different nuance or flavor of it that someone else laughs on. Yeah. Because I don't know, that's how bold I'm like, I think if people truly understood what is it I'm trying to do, like, I don't know how everyone can't be passionate about it. Because really, I'm just talking about making everyone, that doesn't sound even right. The word make is not the right word, but maybe inspiring or helping us become aware of the beauty each of us has and feeling that deeper connection, with our loved ones, with ourselves, with this world, right? Seeing that beauty. Like earlier, you were talking about that flower, right? And I often think there's the world does keep changing. And remember, I've told you I went to engineering, so I have that tech background too. And I think there are different ways to look at that flower. There are colors that we can't see with our own human eyes. Yes. And yet technology allows us now to kind of peer, under the covers of the illusions of nature, so to speak, and open our mind to see even more. So that's kind of where I'm seeing, is really getting deep into what this reality is like.
Yeah, that is, oh my gosh, that is so powerful. And I feel like if the visionary women watching and listening to us right now, they get that. They get that. They understand what it is like to see what they feel like nobody else around them can see, and then the call becomes, how do I make the technology available so that everyone else gets to see what I see now? That is so powerful. You wake up and you look at a problem, everybody sees the problem, but yet you see the solution, and okay, this might take everything I have, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Now, you talked about voice and having different voices come to the table and having different voices poke at the topic and ask the questions and bring out more and more detail. Has there ever been a time when you felt as though your own voice was silenced or diminished?
Yeah, it's again, you have the most incredible questions. And, it's like how these are stories that I've never shared, and I think only now, like you say, with this 30 days of stories from a female perspective, it's only now at this age I'm really starting to appreciate what that means. So I grew up surrounded by tons of men. So my mom has, at that time I grew up with three younger brothers, and my dad is the eldest of 9 boys.
Wow.
So uncles everywhere is all I'm saying, okay? And I was the only kid, and there were all these uncles, and they're amazing human beings. And those were my role models, and I grew up in the restaurant, and most of the people that I hung out with, that I worked with in the restaurant, were all boys, men, teenagers, 20s, guys. Music, lots of guys. In engineering, I think we were 20% female. The class was 200 people when we started. I graduated as the only female who was a computer programmer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Wow. So kind of used to being like, no, I don't need a girls group. I can be just with one of the guys. What's the big deal, right? What's the big deal? But I'm learning now that, okay, when you, like you say, it's all the voices that you hear, you don't realize the diverse perspective. And you think, is it that someone else silences me, or is it that I did not yet have the tools that I need to understand what was happening? And I remember early on in my career, after graduating, there was a particular time when we were having this meeting in a boardroom saying, okay, share your ideas. And I kept trying to interject, or not interject, but just to add this different perspective. Yeah. And it got to the point where afterwards, one of my colleagues, he's actually the one who pulled me into that startup in the first place. He's like, Crystal, I don't know what was happening. Because this is what now, 15 years ago, right? To show my age. It's like, I don't know what was happening. It was almost comical that I don't know why they just are not letting you speak. And I hate to say it, but now that I understand, it's back then we didn't have these terms like mansplaining, and understanding that there are definitely statistics that show women are silenced, not for any conscious intent or malice. It's just what happened. So I think had I known that now back then, what would I have done differently? Because otherwise back then I was like, you don't want to seem like the rude person saying, excuse me, but you keep talking over me, whereas you allow each other to talk over each other. What's the deal?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what to say. And then, so that's definitely one of those examples is when it's just impossible to speak up because you just don't know what's happening. Another example that it's weird how these things stick in your mind, even decades later, right?
Long after, yeah.
Yeah, and again about diversity, we assume that people around us maybe have similar values because we don't know. I don't know the culturally nuanced differences between myself and others. I mean, I do, and then I don't, right? Like I can't assume. I don't know the individual. There's no way I can assume anything. And I'll never forget, if you can give me this like minute for this story. It was after, and if somehow one of these people hears the story, I would love them to know this. It was after a big project in our MBA, capstone project. We had just given a big presentation to a mock board, and everyone was feeling a little bit nervous, I think, waiting for the outcome. Deflated. And they gave us this beautiful room to wait. And they were so generous. There were these gorgeous desserts. I'm not a dessert person, but they were the most beautiful cakes, like teas, stuff, just beautiful. And in my culture, at least how I grew up, let's just say that regardless of, I grew up in a restaurant, so food's a big deal, and cheers and like saying, hey, let's toast. Yeah. I just wanted to have a celebration because everyone's really down, and you can tell I'm the kind of person that if you're down, I'm going to try to cheer you up, right? And we were not having it. And instead of saying, even stopping for a moment to ask me, why am I trying to cheer you? Why am I even saying, okay, would you like some cake? Because it's beautiful. And then there's a obligation. I felt bad that, gave us this beautiful spread and we're not even touching it. All these different things. That's my point. All these different histories that we bring into that moment, right, that other people might not understand. And instead of trying to understand, I'll never forget one of my teammates with almost disgust in his voice, like I was peer pressuring him. Why are you trying to get us to eat when we don't want to, Crystal? And I was just so shocked. I didn't know what to say because I was just so misunderstood. And then at that point, you just feel bad. And I think this is just one example of many times in my life when I've been misunderstood and I feel bad. And I see that with my children too. You ask her, if you hear people make what's wrong with you? Why'd you do that? And the kid just shuts down. Doesn't know what to say. It was probably an accident. They probably didn't even notice. But when you put that assumption that someone's trying to do something wrong and you question them with that look on your face, what's wrong with you? Wow, you will never know what actually was that gift that child was trying to give you.
It's true. It's so true. That is something, thank you for sharing that, Crystal, so much, because if we go back into the recesses of our minds, we, like you said, we start finding these things that just kind of stick out. And it might, there's the guilt of even, why do I still feel bad about it? Like, shouldn't I no longer think about it in this way? And I really want our visionary women to connect with that, with the understanding that, like you said, we didn't have certain tools. We didn't have names for things. So we weren't equipped to be able to say, hold on a minute now. I have the floor. Space is created for me, like you said, terms like mansplaining and all, these were terms that we had before. But even so, now that we have the terminology, there is still then that internal connection to, I am here serving. If you're not accepting my gift of service, I will take my gift elsewhere. And that is such a harsh stance to take. It feels like, because we're accustomed to then doing just exactly what you did. That's what I would do. I would You know, oh, I feel bad because I'm trying to do something good for you, but it's offending you. I feel bad for offending you, you know? And then eventually, like, you know, you look at like the older women, they're no longer apologizing for anything, you know? They're like in their 80s and whatnot. And they're like, oh, I'm trying to feed you. Why don't you just eat the food?
And I think that's why I hold on to this story. And this is now, like I said, I've never ever shared that story before, and we can learn from it. You're right. And then it comes from that confidence and that comfort in knowing ourselves to say, oh, it's okay. I see you're offended. I'm not going to allow myself to feel bad and I'm going to stay that generous human that is sure of my gifts, right? And be like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you. It's because I want to help celebrate. Right? And then I wonder how that conversation would have changed. Yes. Yeah. That's why with my children, especially when I feel like, oh, because I do fall back into old habits, right? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, oh no. And then I can see they're shut down. And then now I go, oh, I know what's happening. Because like you say, you have names, we have identified what's happening.
Mm-hmm. That is so powerful. And I really hope that we're taking notes here, because if we're honest with ourselves, we deal with so many of these things like in an ongoing cycle. You know, like one day we might be really, let's say we're really tough one day and nobody can, you know, peg us down. And then the next day somebody could sneeze and we feel bad about everything, you know, and we go through these cycles and it's never really even, you know, like you reach this point and it's all cured, you know, and that's why we need to have the conversations that say, hey, you know, the rest of us were dealing with it too. This is how we dealt with it. This is how we wish we dealt with it. This is how we should have dealt with it. This is how we'll deal with it the next time. It's so important to have meaningful and real, genuine conversation like this, honestly. Now, you are able now to tell that story for the first time. And you're able to share, this is what I was thinking. This is what I was feeling. This is how the reaction affected me. And like you said, should any of the people who were in that room with you be listening to this story, now they're getting to hear, oh, this is what was actually going on with Crystal. We were caught up in, you know, the capstone presentation and all that stuff, but Crystal was far beyond there. She knew that that was done, and we had a moment to celebrate that we didn't see. You took control of the narrative of that particular story. So I'm going to ask you slightly differently from, you know, how does it make you feel having taken control of that particular narrative and deciding the version of the story that should be told today?
Oh my goodness. It's so funny. It's almost as if that story gets way more airtime now than it ever needed to. It's so funny because I think, yeah, those people probably don't even remember that, right? And it's those things that we hold on to. And I guess it's just, yeah, you're right. There was this really powerful exercise that a business coach of mine gave me about a year and a half ago. I think that's one big thing too, is learning when to ask for help. You know, learning when to speak with others. And he had told me about this forgiveness exercise. And he said, Crystal, every day, just write down forgiveness, like a simple statement. And I remember showing him afterwards, not to read, but they were pretty long. He's like, Crystal, that's hilarious. I meant like one line. You wrote like a whole journal, entry. What I got out of it, and now I feel like I'm jumping to the punchline, because this is just at least my own journey with it. And he wanted me to learn this on my own, and maybe others. I'm now robbing them of this opportunity. For me, what happened when I wrote this out was then I realized for each of those times when I originally felt like I need to forgive somebody because there was a story that I held on to, it was part of me for decades sometimes, right? I realized, wait, at that moment in time, that person was trying to do their best with what they had in that moment, right? And I thought their intent was not malice, or even if it was, it might have been because of fear or because of whatever it was. And then the key learning for me was, it's about not even needing to forgive. There is nothing to forgive, because then you recognize, what was actually happening. So I guess that's what it is when you talk about not just that particular story, but taking ownership of how you tell the story is, finding the gifts, right? And finding the moments of gratitude, I guess, where you learn from even suffering. I've heard that recently, like we say, the ups and downs. Oh my goodness, right? As entrepreneurs, whoa.
I know.
The lows are so deep. They are so dark and deep. They, for me, they feel like intellectually, I know I'll get out of them now. I've at least grown to that part, but I still, when I'm in them, wow, they feel like,
Yes.
and to now learn, right, the next time. So my next learning is the next time I'm in this deep low, I'll say, okay, what is the gratitude I can get out of this suffering? What am I learning? What is this next thing I need to learn?
Yeah. We talked about that in our affirmation this morning. And sorry, guys, my 6-year-old did inform me that my voice sounded super tired in this morning's affirmation, but okay. But one of the things we talked about is I am ready to let go. I'm ready to let go of the past stories. I'm ready to let go of my past shortcomings and of other people's past shortcomings that affected me. I'm ready to let go all of it, because that is what creates the space that I need to embrace the good that's coming, and I love that you talk about that exercise that you were given, because it helps us to be able to, again, name something. When we're just walking around with this basket of emotions,
Abstract, like, oh, right?
Exactly. They're all jumbled up, and we can't actually then parcel it out to say, okay, this is affecting me in this way, and that is affecting me in this way. And then be able to give priority to, what space do we actually need to be in right now? What is the most helpful emotion that I need? Let's talk about it as entrepreneurs. When you're down in that very lonely, seemingly, forever deepening, abyss of, you geared up and you had something ready and planned, and then, and you're there and you feel like no one else gets it. Nobody else understands what this space is like. Even in there, when we let go of what we were dealing with before, it makes that a little less each time, because it's going to happen, girls. It's going to happen over and over, but each time it's just a little less tragic.
Exactly. That's exactly a little. I'm almost getting to the point now where I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if before we get, and it's not even before you get there, but seeing it as resistance as opposed to suffering. I'm kind of working on that now. It's like, if I can understand the resistance, but even then it's very much, right, it's your mental health, your physical health that has a huge part to play in everything, the conditions, the environment. Like you say, I'm sure I will have another deep dark low.
And you know what, and now we have community for those deep dark lows, and I think that for so long that's been a big part that's been missing for a lot of us, because we've heard the other stories of what people assume will happen when women get together. Oh, it's going to be drama. Oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And all the tearing down of what would happen when women get together. And it's just been like a perpetuated lie that's been stopping us from getting together, And now that there's the opportunity to build community there in that space that says, I get all the dimensions of what you're facing. I get that this is not an isolated circumstance. I get that your feeling down in entrepreneurship will affect how you deal with, your hair. It might, again, going back to those things that may seem so mundane, but we get that these connections are important. We get that as women, we bring all of it all at one time. I don't know if you ever heard that there's this guy, Mark Gungor, I want to say is his name. He talks about like women's brains versus men's brains. And he says like a man's brain is like a series of boxes, and everything is like completely separate. And he even has a box where he thinks about absolutely nothing. And women don't understand that box. Like, how is it possible to think about nothing, right? And he's like, he's like, a woman's brain is like a ball of different colored wires. And all the wires touch each other and everything is interconnected and interwoven. And so men and women trying to have conversations, and she's talking about the blue wire and the red wire and the purple wire and the green wire. And he's like, pick a wire.
Focus on this one wire. It's exactly sequential versus everything's happening at the same time. Yes. And the beauty that comes out of that creation,
Exactly.
You're right. We could go on, so I won't go down that rabbit hole.
But no, it's so important for us to realize that it's okay once we get that understanding, like you said, once we can name things, suddenly we have an approach now. Now it's like, oh, a lot of the business techniques and whatnot say do this in these strategic steps that go from point A to point B. And as women, we're coming together like, okay, I also have these other points going on in other parts of my life that nobody's paying any attention to. And they also have points A to Z, tracks. How do I manage all of them? How do I do it all? That's where the community comes.
Yes, I'm so glad you bring that up because that's really the journey that I'm going through right now, and having the authentic, transparent journey. I'm just realizing the word parent isn't transparent, so that's funny. So my children call me out on it, and the irony never escapes me. I'm busy in this room trying to build this business that's supporting people to spend more quality time with their family while sacrificing time away from my own family. And that's not okay. And so one of the things that I want to say is why do we think we need to live this way? Why do we think we need to separate? And forgive me for saying this, some of the gifts of the time we have right now is learning it isn't easy. Just being by yourself in this family unit, have sweet young children running all around doing their own thing, and you're trying to balance them. You're trying to, it's hard. And I think, well, thousands of years ago, we used to be in a village, right? There was no separation, really, right? Many adults would raise their children, just I guess how I was brought up. And children can be involved from a very early age, right? I'm kind of starting to walk that walk now, right? To show how can we be a little bit more conscious, aware, where we don't have to, like you say, create these boxes. Of course, when I'm focused on a task, I will focus on that task. Just also, how can we be a little bit more inclusive? I tell you, when I focus on something, my children, like we were saying earlier, wow, they got this clarity, and they will be able to point something out, and designing things with diverse minds in mind. Right? Really helps.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll give you a quick example of how not compartmentalizing, because I have a strangely compartmentalized perspective on a lot of things for a female. I think it comes from that mathematics, the science part, right?
Sure.
But one of the things I realized at the beginning of, life on Zoom, my daughter would have to be like out of the room, go, I don't know, watch TV, read a book, do something out there. And then we started doing something where like we would have bargains, first of all. Okay, mommy really needs this time to focus. So what are you going to do on your own then?
Yes.
And then we started creating like, okay, you can't come into the screen if you see it's recording. So she would come at the side of my screen, just peep around the side to see if she sees a little recording button or not. And I would give her like under the shot of the screen, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And she would come and hold my hand off screen.
Oh my gosh.
She just sit there quietly and hold my hand until I'm done or until she's bored, and that was because I had to realize that it was okay to work and spend time as long as we figured out what the boundaries of that looked like, And so that's just I'm throwing that tip out there to the mommies. Sometimes we can allow ourselves to mix things, we can actually do that. And that's where what creates the harmony versus balance. And I'm so glad that you're a musician as well, because the idea of, I explain balance is like, imagine you go to an opera or to a symphony and all of the musicians play the exact same note for the entire 2 hours.
Be torturous.
What is that?
Oh, I don't know. It might be an interesting one time in your life experience. But exactly, right? You want those different voices and you want them at the same time.
Yeah.
So true. It's funny when you said that, I heard that door open over there. I thought, I think one of my children are peeking in. It's so funny. But, for the littlest one, what I'll tell him is, okay, I want time with you too. I need to get this thing done. So if I can get this thing done, then we will have time. And man, will they hold you to it.
Oh yeah.
And then it's great. And then there's a purpose. And I think, I don't know why, but sometimes we forget, children, just because I try to think of my kids as just younger versions of their adult selves.
Yes.
Give them that respect that they deserve.
Yes.
right? And then even in the now say, okay, I'm going to try to tell you, this 4-year-old child person, this is what's happening, and then hopefully they'll get what they get.
Yeah, and they'll shock you when they come back around, because sometimes they look like they're not listening, like they're not hearing anything, and then 2 months later they're like, "Oh, do you remember?"
So true. Good thing about that, and just about tips. So one of the things when I started my business, what we started with personally in our family was this experiment. We called them Parent-Child 101 dates.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 3 kids. At the time I had 2. So my husband took one of the kids one Wednesday, and I would take the other one Wednesday. We'd just go do our own thing, and then next Wednesday we'd switch our one-on-one date. And our children to this day will always remember when it's their date time, their date, and they will make sure you hold you to. They are the best accountability buddies.
They are. They so are. Oh my gosh. Now, this idea of creating this harmony in your home, in your business, within yourself, in your relationships, coming to a place of owning your story and your version, and giving space to your voice, the gift of your vision to yourself. How does that, in your opinion, lead to this victory that we say will come? What does victory look like in your mind?
This question too, that was the main one that I was just spreading around saying, why do people need? I don't use that word, victory. It's not a word that I use very much. I think of I don't even know if success is even a word that I use. It's so interesting, And I love the way you said image comes to mind.
Yes.
What image comes to mind? And that's exactly it. I find with communication or thought, words sometimes cannot convey the depths of what you mean, right? When you picture someone in your mind, I can't put into words what you look like, but I can totally see what you look like, right?
Yeah.
For me to try to explain, oh my goodness, that'd be tricky. And so, for me, and I think a lot of us who have these really audacious goals and these visions that we have, we, like you said earlier, you can't really control what happens outside, and there's a lot of reading that I do that talks a lot about how maybe it's an illusion as well, that we can control what we really do, that maybe free will is in some ways an illusion. And that might sound, very controversial, but think about certain types of magicians like mentalists. Mentalists are amazing. Do it for fun and for entertainment, that they can totally put a thought in your brain, right? And make it seem like they're controlling you. So don't tell me that doesn't happen. But when you go and buy something and there's a shiny little thing at the cash register, and you decide to buy it, you did not go into that store thinking you wanted to buy that thing.
Right.
Constantly around us, the environment, there are things that influence us. So that being said, as much as I can over time then pick up the awareness and pick up the tools to allow me to not get in the way of my own vision, I think to me is my own personal daily victory, so to speak, to be able to achieve that. But really, when I was thinking about this question, and I think, again, this is where it comes to being bold and saying, I refuse to see the world as unchanging, and that I said this the other day, I'm like, if in 2 generations from now, children are still being born on this planet where they feel like they cannot live a fulfilled life, if they feel like it's impossible to, find themselves and do what they truly explore their gifts, in 2 generations, I mean, that to me is so utterly unacceptable. And yet, if we don't make any changes, who's to think anything different will happen? But to me, victory, and it's interesting because there's a lot of these questions about what do I think and what is my story, and that's not usually the way I think, even though I say I. It's so hard, right, with English or any language, but I sense that I'm just part of everything, right? This is not my life's purpose. This is the purpose that I have because of the world around me and the people around me that gave me the perspectives that I got through my life. This is what the world is telling me that we need. We're a collective. This is just my role, and what the future looks like. To me, victory comes when we all can say we are able to achieve what we need to achieve. Okay, yeah, to make the world a better place. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go so cheesy on you here. I think victory is not you yourself on the top of a mountain.
Yeah. I think that was one of the biggest things for this question. I just want to pull out what you said about the daily victory, you know, and that it is a day-to-day journey. It is you choosing. You said, I refuse to think the world is unchanging. You know, that choosing who you will be and how you will show up in every moment. That's the daily victory. And if we all commit to that individually, the result is this intergenerational change, this intergenerational possibility, you know. And we are here to change the world, to save the world. That's why we're here as visionary women, right? Because like we all have these big global international visions, and you know, and a lot of it then also comes down to, well, how am I going to change my world? You know, how am I going to change the world going on inside my own head, and then what I manifest in my world around me? You know, how do I become that, like that central impact point of change? You know, and I really, I love that whole idea of the day-to-day victory, you know, that waking up and making the choice. That's our victory that we can walk in. And I also, you know, I'm also looking at that original imagery that we were given: the top of the mountain, you know, the top of the podium, the gold medallion, you know, winning and domination.
Exactly. Over others is what traditionally that word means, right? Over others. And I say, no, there is no other, right? There is no them. We're just us. And I'm so grateful now that I'm not the only one that I hear saying that, right? That there's so many of us that say, no, of course. And like exactly picking on that, the daily is like, maybe I don't have control fully on what I do, you know, on all the choices because of all the external influences. And maybe I have an option of how I perceive it, you know, to come from a mindset of gratitude, even in the deepest suffering. And thank goodness I'm very lucky. The deepest suffering isn't that bad anymore, you know, and to have that mindset of gratitude. And it took me a long time, but I feel like I'm starting to get this glimmer of the mindset of abundance. You know, so when you said thank you for saying yes, I was like, you are doing something incredible. Of course, I'm saying yes. Right? And it's not right now, then when. I heard someone say that the other day. He says he doesn't say no anymore. He says, I can't now. How about, you know, another time? I think that's beautiful. And so really that mindset of always giving and being generous and connecting, that mindset, that's the victory that I have control over. I hope so. Right? And I will fail. And I think at those times I'll remember Nadia and I'll say, yes, Nadia reminded me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Crystal, thank you so very much for doing this with me this afternoon. It's a Sunday afternoon. We both got, you know, as we would say in where I'm from, a husband and children, you know.
We're quietly somewhere in the basement hiding, the sweet people.
Right. And we're so grateful to them and how they support us and how they hang out with us and stick it out with us. And I'm really happy to have you here, sharing and being, as you said, authentic and allowing us to peer into your life, but your mind and your brilliance, you know, allowing that to shine. And I really am appreciative of that you're doing here for us, because we all are figuring things out, you know, and the more we figure it out together, the less pressure is on each individual. Ooh, here's a science thing for us, right? Yes. Let's think about like the board on the raw eggs. Right. And if you try to stand on a board on top of raw eggs and you have like 1 or 2 eggs, you crush the poor eggs. Right. But when you have lots of still raw eggs and you're spreading out the pressure from someone standing on the board, now all of a sudden you could bear that weight and nobody's being crushed under that weight anymore. You know, and that's what this is all about for us. We may be fragile on our own if we take on the full weight of all of the changes we want to make, but together, we can do it together. Yes. I had to tie it into physics for us, you know.
Exactly. And for those, then it's relatable, right? In a very relatable story, because we can all imagine crushing an egg.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, ladies, if you enjoyed this conversation and you want to know more about Crystal, I will make sure that you can connect with her on her website. Make sure you check out all of her socials, learn more about how she's helping you and your families and your communities to live in our here and now, and to still learn, be entertained, grow together, have fun, laugh, all of it. And really, I want you to make sure that you connect more with Crystal. Here at HERstory, we're really privileged and powerfully blessed to work with the beautiful foundation all year long. 10% of everything we do this year is going to the beautiful foundation. This is an organization that has stood up and said, I see the beauty in the most unbeautiful circumstances. So they go right where women are at, women who are economically disenfranchised, women who are overcoming sexual abuse and the trauma suffered there, who are overcoming substance abuse, finding themselves, finding their new life, finding who they choose to be and how they want to show up for themselves for the rest of their lives, coming alongside them and saying, your circumstance isn't beautiful, but you are. And I'm here to connect with that beauty in you and make sure that we support you as you define this newness of life, commitment to giving voice to the voiceless. And we're really pleased to be able to support that work that they do. So if you want to be a part of supporting that work, you want to know how you can volunteer, you want to know how you can donate, all of that, we'll make sure that that's available. And if you want to be able to, yes, donate and also have some fun, we have an event coming up in April. It's called Hey Sister, Let's Color. And we are partnering with the lovely Sophia Soj Jackson. You would have heard her voice. I know, right? She's our sweetheart. You would have heard her voice in the video, but you also would have known her from before in our masterminds, if you've seen that she's a part of our masterminds. And so she's really good at bringing these conversations around these images in her Soulful Color coloring book, and the affirmations that go with them, and having really genuine conversation guided by a mental health professional worker who understands the connectivity between mental health and financial wellness. And so we're having like multiple layers of conversation while we're coloring, like bringing that calm, resting ourselves. And so get yourself your me gift, splurge a little bit, treat yourself. And remember that is also going to be benefiting the beautiful foundation. So go deeper with us. We are here all month long at noon Eastern time. As Kristen and I talked about, bringing a different woman, 30 days, 30 interviews, 30 stories, 30 perspectives. It has really been amazing so far. Tomorrow is halfway. That just clicked. Tomorrow's day 15. Yeah, wow.
You are just incredible, Nadia. Like I said, just putting this all together, bringing these incredible people together, this vision that you have, that you are fulfilling. I'm just so humbled and grateful to be part of it and to get to know you a little bit better today.
I know. Thank you, my dear. Do you have any words of wisdom for our ladies before we hop off today?
That's so funny. I did not think of this, but one thing I've been thinking of lately is we are so taught to always do something so that we can be better, so that we can learn more, so that it's always about so that, and the pressure we put on our kids, get good grades so that you can get into good school, so that. How about just right now? Right now is what you've got. It's at least where we are. It's a gorgeous sunny day. How about be present and love what you're doing so that you love what you're doing.
Yes. Let the so that wrap right back around to right now. Yes.
Live in our here and now. And remember, it's all us. We're all together. There's no them. It's just all of us together.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Crystal. Thanks to everyone who's been joining us live this afternoon. If you're catching us on the replay, please #replay and let us know what has resonated with you. And remember, click all them links. Make sure you get connected. Lots of good stuff going on here, people. Make sure you connect with Crystal. She is hilarious.
Thank you so much again. Thank you so much to everyone, to Soj for and connecting us, and thank you for everyone watching after.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Hey. sister, sit in store what I'm about to preach on. Damn, sister, close the door. Watch what you step out on. I said, hey, sister, so before you become a sin, I said, hey, sister, there is more, even if you think there isn't. When you live your life day to day, there will always be obstacles in your way. But don't let that get you down, girl.